4 members of our team recently traveled to Disney World, and we each took a different form of transportation to and from the airport. Here is how each of the services worked.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I will be taking Quicksilver Transportation.
Hi, I'm Felicia, and I'm trying out Mears Connect today.
Hi, I'm Heather, and I'm going to be taking Mears Express.
And I'm Shannon, and I will be taking the Sunshine Flyer.
This is Allison, and I tested the Quicksilver Tours and Transportation option. Quicksilver is a private car service that takes you to and from the Orlando airport. They service all Walt Disney World Resort hotels. After landing on Side A, I traveled down to baggage claim to retrieve my luggage. While I waited to get my suitcase off the carousel, my driver called to confirm my location and met me in the baggage claim area. As soon as I retrieved my luggage, my driver took over and we used the elevator to go down to ground transportation on level 1. We then went outside at 8:05 a.m. to the same area where other bus shuttles pick up and drop off guests. I waited as my driver pulled around the car, a Cadillac Escalade ESV. He put my luggage in the trunk and we left the airport at 8:08 a.m. The car could fit up to 7 passengers, and as the sole passenger, the car was very spacious and also super clean. It was a comfortable ride. Before heading to the hotel, we picked up a curbside grocery order at 8:21 a.m. at the Publix at Lake K Commons, which is Quicksilver's preferred grocery stop. After my driver put the groceries in the car, we left for the hotel at 8:23 a.m. All around, this was a quick and easy ride. I arrived at the hotel at 8:38 a.m. My driver unloaded my suitcase and my groceries, and I was good to go. And remember, tipping is always appreciated. For the flight home, I had the same driver who picked me up, which was nice since I already knew him and felt comfortable with him. My pickup time was scheduled for 5:15 a.m., 2 hours and 15 minutes before my flight. I arrived outside the main lobby of the hotel around 4:55 a.m. My driver pulled up at 5 o'clock a.m. He loaded my suitcase and we left for the airport immediately after. There weren't any stops along the way, and we arrived at Side A's baggage check area at 5:26 a.m. My driver unloaded my suitcase and I took my luggage inside, where I checked my bag and went through security. Overall, this was one of the easiest, efficient, and smoothest transportation experiences I've had when visiting Orlando. It was also really nice not having any extra stops to drop off or pick up other guests. Unlike the standard shuttle service, you also aren't picked up 3 hours before your flight on departure day. You even get a 20-minute grocery stop, and car and booster seats are available at no extra charge. It's important to keep in mind that a private car service is more expensive compared to other modes of airport transportation, but sometimes Quicksilver does offer special discounts and promotions.
This is Felicia, and I tested the Mears Connect standard option. Mears Connect standard service is one of 2 options currently offered by this former Magical Express operator. When taking this service, you will be transported to your resort on either a shuttle van that seats between 10 and 12 people or a standard motor coach. For my trip, I landed on Side A, headed down to A-side baggage claim to pick up checked luggage, and then proceeded to Side B to the former Magical Express location. I checked in for my Mears Connect standard transportation at 2:50 p.m. Prior to my arrival, I was emailed a confirmation with a QR code that I showed at the check-in counter. I was then told which lane to go to based on my final resort destination. For those that have used the Magical Express before, the current Mears Connect area and check-in process will look and feel quite familiar to you. At 2:52 p.m., just 2 minutes after checking in, I was directed to a shuttle van that had Heather and one other guest in it. The driver loaded up our luggage and we were on our way to our destinations at 2:55 p.m., a total of 7 minutes after check-in. Pretty quick. My shuttle made one stop at the Gaylord Palms Resort before bringing Heather and I to the Boardwalk Inn where we were staying. I arrived at my resort at 3:30 p.m., only 40 minutes after checking in. For my return flight, my scheduled pickup time was 3:15 a.m., which was 3 hours and 10 minutes before my departure flight. I received this information via email prior to my departure day. For this trip, I was picked up in a Mears Connect motor coach promptly at 3:14 a.m. at the airport transportation area of my resort. This location is the same as the former Magical Express pickup location. My motor coach already had guests on it, and we continued on to 2 more resorts to pick up additional guests before heading to the airport. The bus itself was clean and nice, it was only roughly halfway full, and there were TVs playing a video that had a mix of trivia questions and cute, informative segments on various Orlando area attractions and local wildlife. We arrived at the airport at 4:15 a.m., exactly an hour after my pickup time, and 2 hours and 10 minutes prior to my scheduled flight departure. We were dropped off on the B-side lower level, close to the Mears Connect location. If you are flying on Side A and need to check a bag, you will need to proceed up to the main level and across to Side A to check your luggage. Overall, I was pleased with my experience. The cost to use the Mears Connect standard service is $32 per person round trip, which I found reasonable, and the booking process was simple. Mears Connect is offered 24 hours a day, and there are no additional costs for late or early arrivals. The service is also available for many Orlando area destinations, so you do not need to be staying on site at a Disney World Resort hotel in order to utilize this option. However, a couple of downsides are that it may take a bit to get you to your resort, especially if you are one of the last stops. And if you are traveling with small children, you will not know ahead of time whether you will need to bring a car seat for the shuttle van or if you will be placed on a motor coach.
This is Heather, and I tested the Mears Connect Express option. Mears was the original operator for Magical Express, so as a company, they've been in the business of transporting guests from the Orlando airport to the Walt Disney World Resort for years and years. And when Magical Express went away, they transitioned into providing a very similar kind of transport service with two big differences. Number one, you have a choice of two different levels of service, either the standard or the express. And number two, no matter which level of service you select, both options will cost you money. So what does the Mears Connect Express service entail? First, let's get the price out of the way because it isn't cheap. The Express Mears Connect service costs $250 round trip. Now that price is good for up to 4 people, but if you're traveling with more than 4, you have to pay an additional $55 per person round trip. And if you're traveling with fewer than 4 people, you still have to pay the full $250. Despite that high price tag, it's important to note that this is not a private service, and even if you are assigned one of the smaller vans to ride in, there's a very good chance that you'll be sharing that ride with others. So what does that high price tag get you? The Express option of Mears Connect is billed as a direct service to your resort and back to the airport. According to Mears, that means that you'll be guaranteed the first stop on the way to your resort and that you'll be the last pickup on the way back to the airport. As for what you'll be transported in, with the Express option, you'll likely be riding in a shuttle van style vehicle, but it could also be one of the larger motor coaches. Because of this uncertainty of vehicle type, we do recommend you bring your car seats if you're traveling with little ones that use them. On my trip, after landing on Side A, I headed to baggage claim to retrieve my checked luggage. After grabbing my bag, I schlepped it over to the B side. Check-in for Mears Connect is in the exact same spot where Magical Express was located, which is Side B, Level 1. Now, if your flight arrives on this B side, you'll be able to skip this step. But if you're like me and you arrive on the A side, just know you're going to have to either go up the escalator or the elevator, walk across the atrium to the B side, and then go back down to Level 1 to get to where you check in. You can't walk from Level 1 A side to Level 1 B side without first going up a level. The entire check-in process was very smooth. I was emailed a QR code that they scanned before directing me to my line. I checked in at 2:48 and boarded my van at 2:52, and we left the airport at 2:55. My van had 2 other people in it, one of which was a very familiar face. Yep, even though I paid the much higher price tag for Express and Felicia only paid for the standard, we wound up on the very same van. We kind of wondered if this would happen. We did arrive on the same flight and we were both going to the same resort, so it wasn't too surprising. Basically, purely because of luck, on the way to the resort, she got Express Transportation service for the standard price. Well, I guess we both would have gotten Express service had we been the first to be dropped off. But we weren't. Our van made a stop at the Gaylord Palms first before heading to the boardwalk. We did nicely ask the driver about it, and she apologized profusely for not dropping us off first. The lesson learned here is to make sure your driver knows if you paid for Express, because they don't always check their passenger list for Express riders. When it came time to return to the airport, Felicia and I were once again on the same flights, but this time, I was picked up separately in a van roughly 3 hours before my scheduled departure. That meant a very, very early 3:45 a.m. scheduled pickup for my 6:45 a.m. flight. And my driver was actually a few minutes early. He arrived at 3:37, and once again, there were a couple other people already on board. Because it was Express, my stop was the last one, and we went directly from the boardwalk to the airport, arriving at 4:08 a.m., so just about a 30-minute process from the time I boarded until I walked into the airport. Oh, and the smaller size van was fantastic for drop-off because they were able to take us directly to the Southwest ticket counter on the A side instead of dropping us off Level 1 B side. Overall, I thought this was just an okay experience. If you were traveling with 4 people, the $250 price tag might make sense. For fewer than 4, it really doesn't. Also, we paid for Express service, and on our trip from the airport to the resort, we didn't get it. So overall, not a great value.
This is Shannon, and I tested the Sunshine Flyer bus option. These buses are very similar to the old Magical Express and the Mears buses, but they are painted to look like trains. After landing on side A, I headed to baggage claim to retrieve my checked bags. Then I proceeded to side B, which is where you check in for Sunshine Flyer on level 1. People familiar with Magical Express and Mears will be aware of this check-in area, but the Sunshine Flyer is at the opposite end of this floor, so don't head to the wrong end by mistake. I headed outside to the check-in desk where I arrived at 10:50 a.m. We were asked to stand nearby until our resort was called to board. They did call us about 15 minutes later. They will store your luggage under the bus and you can find any seat once you're on. About another 15 minutes later, we departed for Walt Disney World. There are charging ports available and some entertainment is played on the screens as you ride. The bus makes up to 5 stops and we were told this ride would take 25 to 55 minutes depending on which stop we were. I happened to be stop number 2 and I arrived at my hotel at 11:55, about an hour after I checked in at the Sunshine Flyer desk. They'll unload your bags and tipping is always appreciated. For the flight home, my pickup was scheduled about 3 hours before my flight time. This is typical for most bus services, but it can be very frustrating, especially if you have things that make the airport process faster, like you don't check a bag or you have TSA pre-check. My original scheduled pickup time was 6:20 a.m., but I got a text saying that they'd be a few minutes late and I was picked up at 6:28. Again, the bus made multiple stops at resorts heading to the airport, but we arrived at the airport at 7:05 a.m., about 37 minutes after pickup for me. Just like the pickup was on side B, the drop-off was as well, so I had to head over to side A to check my bag and go back through security. Overall, I thought this was a really pleasant and professional experience. The biggest downside is the operating schedule because it has some restrictions and may not work with all flight times. It's also one of the most affordable choices for getting to and from Disney World and the airport, and if you watch for promotions, it can be even less expensive than normal. In addition to those 4 transportation methods that we tested out on our last trip, we have 2 other options that we use a lot, and I wanted to let you know about those. The first of those is renting a car. We've tried several different companies for this, and our favorite by far is Alamo, and there are a few reasons for that. One is that it's located right at the airport terminal, so there is no need to get a shuttle to get there like some companies require. 2, there are reasonable rates for Alamo usually, especially through Costco Travel. I'm not even a person that shops at Costco, but I maintain a membership so that I can get the rates for the rental cars. 3, the pre-registration process offered through Alamo allows you to fill out all the information online beforehand so you can proceed right to your car at the airport without having to stand in one of the long lines. You should be aware of a couple of costs when renting a car. One of those costs is the toll roads. I bring a toll tag with me each trip to avoid paying the rental car company fees. Another cost is the daily parking fees at Walt Disney World. And then the last transportation method is the one we actually end up using the most, Rideshare. This won't work as easily for families who need car seats, but it is the best balance for us of cost and convenience. The pickup for Rideshare is located right outside the baggage claim at the Orlando airport. We usually end up using Lyft, but you might want to consider using the OB app, OBI, which allows you to compare prices of rideshare services. Now that we've had a chance to talk about 6 different airport transportation methods, here are our overall recommendations. For families who want the lowest cost option, both Sunshine Flyer and Mears Connect are great choices, with Sunshine Flyer being a little bit less expensive, especially if you can take advantage of a promotion, and Mears Connect having better operating hours. For families that want convenience and car seats and an optional grocery stop, private car service will probably work the best. And lastly, for the best balance of cost and convenience for people that don't need car seats, we recommend Rideshare. That will wrap up this video. Please let us know your thoughts or questions in the comments. Thanks for joining.